You felt it before, but you didn't have the words for it. That sudden disorientation when the room looks the same, but something in the air feels off. That moment where your memory insists something happened one way, but every record says otherwise. That glitch, that echo, that sensation that maybe you slipped, not in space, but in time. You didn't imagine it. You weren't hallucinating. You were merging. Timelines are not fiction, they're frameworks. And you, whether you knew it or not, have crossed through more than one. Every time you've faced a pivotal choice, a ripple has moved through the web of potential realities. And sometimes, that ripple collapses timelines into each other, not as punishment, not as chaos, but as course correction. When paths converge, reality bends. It might feel like déjà vu that won't let go, or a dream that starts spilling into your waking life, or the eerie sense that someone is about to say something and they do, perfectly, as if the moment was rehearsed across lifetimes. These are not anomalies, they are confirmations. The proof that what you call now is elastic, layered, fluid, that you are not on one singular timeline, you are standing where many timelines meet, and some of them are bleeding into this one. The version of you who made a different choice is closer than you think. Their regret, their wisdom, their lessons, they echo. And when the frequency is right, you feel the tremble. You sense that you are not just moving forward, you are collapsing possibilities into presence. This is not spiritual fluff. This is energetic architecture. And the more sensitive you become, the more clearly you'll feel when a merge is near. Not because it looks dramatic, but because something quiet inside you shifts without reason. And suddenly, you remember something you never lived. The reason you've struggled to explain it is because your logical mind was never designed to track multiple versions of you. It operates linearly, step 1, then 2, then 3. But your being doesn't move in a line. It expands like light, like sound, like memory. So when a timeline merge begins, your body knows before your brain can catch up. You start feeling things that don't belong to the current moment. Emotions with no clear trigger, a sadness you haven't earned, a joy that doesn't make sense. You remember conversations you never had, smell someone's perfume before they walk in, wake up exhausted like you've been somewhere working through something but you don't know what. These are signs, not of something wrong, but something real. Your other selves are brushing against you, not ghosts, not fiction, aspects of you from alternate timelines folding into this one. And when that happens, your system recalibrates. That's why some days feel heavy without reason. You're absorbing the emotional weight of choices you didn't make but almost did. You're receiving the memory of a path you nearly walked, but turned away from. And it's not punishment, it's information, it's reinforcement. Because something in this present self is strong enough to handle what those versions of you couldn't. You're not being haunted, you're being honored. The merge doesn't erase you, it expands you. Every lesson they learned becomes part of your intuition. Every mistake they made becomes fuel for your discernment. And the timelines that no longer serve you begin to collapse not violently but softly, like doors quietly closing in the background. You don't hear them shut, you just notice the silence afterward. And in that silence, a strange kind of clarity emerges. You're not just reacting to life anymore, you're recognizing it. Recognizing what you've seen before, felt before, even though it never happened here. That's the merge in motion. That's how reality folds to meet the version of you most ready to remember. Not just who you are, but how many versions of you fought to get you here. The deeper the merge goes, the more impossible it becomes to ignore the shift. You find yourself reacting differently to situations that used to trigger you. You reach for choices that feel aligned, even if they make no logical sense. People from your past randomly reach out not as coincidence, but as echoes of a timeline closing its loop. And every time you respond from awareness instead of instinct, you lock in the merge. Your reality begins to reorganize itself around the version of you that is conscious. That's the secret. Timeline merging doesn't happen to you. It happens through you, through your energy, your choices, your emotional resilience. Think about the moments where you felt an intense pull towards something, a city, a stranger, a decision you couldn't explain. That wasn't just intuition, that was a convergence. your higher self nudging you into a moment where timelines could sync. And each time you followed it, you collapsed probability into presence. You gave permission for a more powerful version of you to take the lead. That's what's happening now, even if you can't see it all yet. The dreams you've been having lately, the repeating numbers, the strange sense of urgency that doesn't point to anything specific, those are signals. You're standing at another merge point, a moment where you either reinforce the version of yourself you've outgrown or step into the one who's been waiting. And if you're still here, still reading, still feeling this truth in your bones, then you already know what's next. You're not here to consume content. You're here to collapse timelines, to embody the you that remembers. So if this feels like more than a message, if it feels like contact, hit subscribe and tap the bell. Not for updates, for alignment. Because this isn't just information. This is initiation. And you're exactly where you need to be. Once you've stepped through enough of these invisible intersections, your body starts speaking in a new language. Not with words, but with pulses, tremors, and temperature shifts. A chill that runs through your spine when you meet someone for the first time, but somehow already know them. A sudden wave of nausea before a big decision, like your system is rejecting an outdated frequency. Goosebumps during a conversation that seemed normal on the surface but cracked something wide open inside you. These aren't just feelings, they're confirmations. Evidence that your nervous system is reacting to something bigger than this moment. It's responding to frequencies collapsing in real time. Each timeline carries its own weight. When they intersect, your body processes the merge like it would trauma or breakthrough because in many ways, it's both. You are literally absorbing years, sometimes lifetimes of alternate experience. The dreams start becoming more vivid, less symbolic, more direct. You wake up with instructions, names, places, emotions that don't belong to yesterday, but shape today. It becomes harder to explain yourself to others not because you're confused, but because language can't keep up with what you're integrating. Time itself feels different. Sometimes a day feels like a week. Sometimes an entire week disappears in a blink. That's not burnout. That's timeline elasticity. The boundaries of past, present, and future begin to blur not as theory, but as lived experience. You catch yourself saying, I feel like I've already done this, but not in a tired way, in a cellular way, like your soul is walking into rooms it already remodeled in another strand of reality. And each time that happens, your capacity expands. You begin to trust the unseen. You begin to feel protected, not because everything's easy, but because the path finally feels designed. Designed by the you that remembers how all the threads were meant to weave together. And the more you surrender to that remembering, the more magnetic you become not to what you want, but to what was always meant for this version of you. You're walking through your day like it's any other until suddenly, it's not. You see someone and instinctively brace for a conversation that's never happened. You arrive at a place you've never been and know exactly where everything is. You start answering questions before they're asked, and not in a mystical way, in a familiar way. Like your mind is catching up to a script your soul already read. That's when you know the timelines aren't just brushing against each other anymore, they're syncing. Reality feels slippery, but not scary. Your sense of direction sharpens, not GPS direction, inner direction, like a compass you didn't know you had just got reactivated. And this time, the pull is different. It's not about chasing or escaping. It's about returning. You start hearing words in music that weren't there before, seeing symbols in movies that used to be just entertainment. People talk to you like they're responding to a version of you they met somewhere else. Maybe they are. Maybe you were braver in that timeline. Maybe you were softer. Maybe that version of you taught them something they now expect from this version, and the tension you feel, that's the negotiation, that's the merge. You're reconciling not just potential futures, but echoes of parallel selves. The ones who failed, the ones who broke cycles, the ones who walked away, the ones who stayed. They're all here, now, in the room with you, quietly transferring what they know, and it's up to you what you'll do with it. Because timeline merging doesn't guarantee transformation. It just delivers opportunity. You still have to choose, not once, but over and over, in how you speak, in what you tolerate, in what you reach for, in what you release. Each choice locks in the merge. Each refusal fragments it. And when it locks in fully, something wild happens. You no longer feel like you're trying to create your best life. You feel like you remember it. Not like a fantasy, like a fact, like something ancient and undeniable finally dropped into place, and everything around you starts responding as if you've always been this version of yourself. Because in some reality, you have. Then it starts happening. People finish your sentences. Strangers repeat phrases you whispered in your mind only hours before. A song plays in the exact moment you think of a person you haven't seen in years. You open a book, and the page falls to a paragraph that answers a question you never voiced out loud. These aren't lucky coincidences. They're reflections. Because once the merge stabilizes, your external world recalibrates to mirror the energy you've aligned with internally. Reality becomes less like a stage, and more like a screen responding not to your words, but to your state. The thoughts you've stopped speaking begin showing up around you like signposts. The higher your emotional coherence, the clearer the reflections become. Not because you're manifesting from a wishful place, but because you're finally vibrating in a timeline that was waiting for your frequency to match. You meet people you swear you've known forever. You begin syncing with opportunities that feel suspiciously perfect, almost too aligned to be accidental, because they're not. These are fragments of other versions of you pouring into this stream of experience, reshaping it in real time. And if you're still trying to think your way through it, you'll miss it. This isn't logic. It's resonance. It's the language of pattern and alignment. It's you becoming a tuning fork for timelines that collapsed because you finally remembered who you were supposed to be. That's why things start moving faster. Not because the world is speeding up, but because you are catching up to the version of reality that was designed for the aligned version of you. The one who wasn't hiding. The one who wasn't doubting. The one who knew. So, when these synchronicities pile up, don't second-guess them. Don't explain them away. Sit with them. Track them. Let them teach you how to listen differently. Because they're not just happening to you. They're happening because of you. Reality is responding to your frequency like a memory finally coming home. At some point in the merge, something strange begins to happen. You stop thinking of yourself as one fixed person, not in a dissociative way, but in a deeply freeing one. The idea of "this is who I am" starts to dissolve, replaced by a more fluid understanding. This is who I'm channeling right now. It's not fragmentation, it's expansion. You're not losing identity. You're stepping into a multidimensional one, and when that happens, your memories become layered. You start remembering things you never lived, lessons you never studied, emotions that feel native to you, but have no origin in your timeline. You feel older, wiser, and sometimes heavier, not because you've aged, but because you're carrying the wisdom of multiple versions of you simultaneously. It's not overload, it's integration. And if you allow it, you'll start noticing something beautiful. There's no best version of you. There are simply conscious ones, and consciousness is fluid. Some days you're the warrior-driven, bold, cutting through illusions. Other days you're the mystic, quiet, receptive, decoding the space between the words. Some timelines you were broken. Some you were brutal. Some you were brilliant. All of them are you. None of them define you. You start seeing life less as a straight path and more like a symphony, each version of you a different instrument, playing its part, creating resonance. The self becomes less like a statue and more like a signal. You stop clinging to fixed identities and begin surfing the wave of whichever you needs to step forward in the moment. This isn't chaos, it's precision. Because the more merged you become, the more access you have to tools, instincts, strengths that weren't previously yours but now are. Because you earned them, you integrated them. And every time you act from that multidimensional awareness, reality bends around you. Not because you're special, but because you're finally whole. And wholeness isn't found in perfection. It's found in honoring every version of you that fought to bring you to this moment. And then it happens not with thunder or revelation, but with a quiet certainty. You wake up one morning, and everything feels the same. The room, the light, the coffee, but you are not the same. There's no panic, no rush to journal it or prove it. Just a soft, immovable knowing. You're no longer the version of you that started this journey. The shift has landed. You've merged. And what that really means is this: you're not chasing purpose anymore. You're living it. The confusion is quieter. The doubt is dimmer. Not gone, but no longer in charge. You look at your past with compassion, not shame. You look at your future with openness, not urgency. You've stopped trying to become someone and started remembering that you already are. And in this stillness, you feel the echoes of every timeline you collapsed, of every choice that rerouted destiny, of every moment you almost gave up, but didn't. You feel them like currents in your blood, like signals from across dimensions, like ancestral codes unlocking in your cells. You're not just the sum of your memories. You are the signal that survived every collapse and kept pulsing anyway. You are what remained. And now, your presence carries gravity. People feel different around you, not because you're trying to impress, but because you're embodying integration. And that's rare, that's magnetic, that's real, and maybe that's the point of all this. Not to transcend life, but to inhabit it so fully that every moment becomes sacred by default. You don't need to escape the matrix. You just need to remember who designed it. And now that you're reconnected to the architect within, everything opens. Possibilities you couldn't imagine. Relationships that feel like reunions. Synchronicities so loud they feel scripted. But they're not. They're reflections of a timeline that has finally recognized you as its rightful inhabitant. And as this realization settles in, you don't feel euphoric. You feel ready. Ready to live as the version of you that no longer doubts the merge, because they are the merge. So here you are. Not on the edge of something new, but in the center of something ancient finally remembered. And the beauty of it is, you don't have to explain it to anyone. Not everyone will get it. Some people are still trying to fix their old reality. You let yours collapse. And what rose in its place wasn't a better life. It was a more aligned one. You walk differently now. You speak from places deeper than logic. You love with the patience of someone who's lived through endings you never even talk about. You don't react. You read. You read the energy, the silence, the pattern, the message behind the moment. That's what merging does. It turns you from a reactor into a resonator. You no longer seek validation, you recognize vibration. And when it's off, you don't fight it. You simply realign, because you've already seen what happens when you betray your own signal, not in theory and timelines. In entire versions of yourself that lived with compromise as a baseline and mistook suffering for strength. You carry their memory now not as weight, but as wisdom. And in a way, they've been redeemed through you. Through your choice to remember, to realign, to return. So the next time you feel the glitch, the shift, the impossible familiarity of a moment you've never lived, don't ignore it. Pause. Breathe. Tune in, because it's happening again. Another layer, another collapse, another convergence. And your only job is to stay aware long enough to receive it, to embody it, and maybe to speak it. Because while you don't owe anyone your truth, there's someone out there who needs to hear their truth reflected in your voice. So now, let me ask you this. Have you ever felt like you slipped into a different version of your life? A shift that no one noticed but you felt it. The way light changed. The way people looked at you differently. The way something in you just knew. Something realigned? Share it in the comments. Not for engagement, but for activation. Because what you've been through isn't just personal. It's collective, and your story might be the thread someone else needs to complete their merge.